the mood on the table out here in the studio is that there needs to be maybe some unlikely things done in order to revive animal spirits, because like it or not, private capex has not turned out, right? What is it that can be done within the limited fiscal space that the finance minister has?
Hi, Neeraj. I think, first of all, I'm sure there are lots of initiatives government will take or is taking will take to kind of push the economy forward. Of course, government front-ended lots of public sector investments has been doing. I think first half of the economy, maybe due to elections, infrastructure investments slowed down or government spending slowed down, and I think that got compounded actually by squeeze in the liquidity, and that is where I think the recent measures of RBI is quite helpful. I think, in my opinion, I am not as negative as some of the other co-panelists on the private capex. I do believe that it's going in right direction. Of course, there can always be more. There's no doubt on that. The key reflection of that is in the order books of all the companies. I think most companies are expanding, but obviously you do not want to see the capex cycle of the previous time where a reckless lending happened and that eventually created a problem in the banking system. So I think very often we are compared with the China model and push that kind of investment cycle here. We must not forget that India is also a very ROE conscious market. If tomorrow promoters or companies do investments, keeping the target of the China's ROE or other countries' ROE, I think the markets won't like it, right? So I think that clearly the orderly capex should happen and is happening. The only thing probably one is not feeling as much is because it is not reflecting the credit cycle, but at the same time that is getting funded through internal accruals and the equity. So I do believe that. I think, of course, a lot can happen to accelerate investment cycle, and I'm sure government is conscious, and there would be some measures on the in the budget to push that forward. And other thing I would make is that actually what numbers they put in the budget really doesn't make as much difference as much as the execution, because we have seen that execution is what is going to drive the real thing, and I think that matters the most. And at least I was reading some article somewhere yesterday that government plans to spend a lot of money in this current quarter to kind of where they lost out in the first half of the year. So I guess some of those things are being done. So I would say that we are on right track.
Also joining in, I want your quick take. So from a global standpoint, demand seems to be difficult in terms of recovery. So we are relying on domestic. Now we've spoken for too long about how GDP per capita has to go up. It's not really moving in a significant fashion when you're looking at it over the last 5 years as well. What is it going to take in this budget to get there?
I think clearly, in my opinion, the income tax rates in India, especially the personal income tax rate in India, is very high, and I think middle class takes very, very big knock of it. In my opinion, even the maximum marginal rate is very, very high. So we definitely need to bring down the income tax rate. Government did bring down the corporate income tax to a reasonable level. I think that needs to happen, and if that happens, I'm sure it will be very, very positive sentiment, which will boost consumption, which will boost also ease the bit of pressure on the middle class. So I think that is one thing, in my opinion, and I guess that's the most likely outcome of this budget. Rest, I would say that government has been doing a lot more great things in terms of pushing forward the same agenda, execute more faster, more sharper. That is, in my opinion, far more important. And identification of the problem is there, but execution, I think, should be, in my opinion, a lot more accelerated.
Okay, let's do a quick round the table. And of course with Vikas on what is the top expectation on this budget, and no prizes for getting it right, but bragging rights. So, so let me start with you, Pankaj. You talked about a lot of things that you think should happen or hope will happen. What do you think will actually happen? One thing.
I think there'll be some relief for middle class households. So essentially, I'm expecting for some relief on personal taxes, expanding of the exemption limits or lower tax rates on the middle income household. I think there's a real acknowledgement. It's been about 3 or 4 years where real incomes for middle income households have declined. So we really need to solve that to help our consumption, because
And a big hint from Prime Minister.
yeah, exactly.
Mahalakshmi.
So I think, yeah.
Mahalakshmi ki
I hope
kripa.
so, yeah. So I hope so. Mahalakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi really, you
Gives
know.
it. Okay, so tax cut for middle class. Radhika, what about you?
I'll expand it and say, he mentioned bold thinking on capex. I think you should do really bold thinking on this tax cut and middle class. So it's not incremental 20,000 rupee, 30,000 rupee. I don't think that's the need of the hour. I think severe reduction in tax slabs, really rethinking some of these old limits. Like the investment limit is, I think, 1.5 lakh. The interest on housing, I mean, it hasn't been revised for years and years.
Yeah,
and
it's been over a
rethink-
decade.
That
I mean,
80 seat
1-2
makes no
lakhs of
sense.
interest income in a city like Mumbai, Delhi, Pune, where real estate prices and rental incomes have gone. I think those need overhaul, actually, and absolute rethinking for the current reality. So part of it is expectation, part of it is a lot of hope, but I think you really need big, bold thinking
Sorry,
on
but where does the
consumption.
money come from for doing all of this?
So look,
GST. You're
GST,
not getting,
that's what I was
you're
going
not
to say.
getting that much.
Tax collections are up. They're not bad.
Okay.
And plus,
And by the way, I agree with him. I know Neeraj made a face when he talked about pushing out fiscal deficit targets.
I
But,
don't
you
think
know,
it will happen.
I talk to my bond CIO, and usually bond market guys are fiscal deficit, fiscal deficit. He's like, this time if they let it slip a little bit in favor of growth, it's not such a bad thing. I would go that far.
Unko chalega.
Unko chalega.
नहीं वो हो जाएगा, but my making a face is not about whether it should be done or no. My making a face is
Unlikely.
that I don't think it will happen. So that's
But
my
we have a
point.
right
It
to
won't
be
happen.
wishful now.
The point is, when you're giving your 12th budget, if you can't be bold and you still have 4 years to go,
See, that's an incentive.
then
That's-
whom do we expect
What
to give
else
a
do you need?
out of
What
the
else
box
do you need?
reforms?
In fact,
Who else will do it?
In these
Who else?
in
Who
these
else?
circumstances, it should happen.
You still have 4 years to go
Correct.
to do your course correction.
Parag bhai.
so for once this middle class, 100% I agree. Some relief has to be given through some way. I think tax, reducing the tax bucket and all, which Pankaj mentioned. I completely agree with Radhika on housing part, which I also mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That housing tax, that deduction has to increase. Because if you want to, as she said, right, that if you want to buy a house in Bombay, what does that 2 lakh rupee deduction mean to you? So that has to, and remember, my center stage of my thinking is that right now we need demand acceleration in the country. See, you can not just say that PLI, I'll give PLI, so plants are put. As I told you, electronics, demand was already there. And so you just balance it that now you are not importing it, you are not increasing your current account deficit, and you are manufacturing it, which is a very good thing to do. But in some sectors, you need to create demand, right? If there's no demand for tractors, how Mahindra is going to put the plant? So to revive the capex cycle, private sector capex, I think you need to revive demand.
Maybe